now to our Vice Chair, another member of leadership and just a voice of understanding, reason, and leadership for the GOP women. Vice Chair of our GOP conference, Ms. McMorris-Rodgers, thank you so much for coming to offer your comments.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be here this evening to join the Republican women, and I want to especially thank you as our leader from North Carolina. I'm proud that you're one of the dynamic Republican women freshmen that joined the House this year. And as I think about what the solution is that faces America, I believe Republican women are a big part of that solution. And we see that you know, for all the people in America that are frustrated with leaders in Congress that go behind closed doors and strike a deal without putting it to the people, Republican women, especially women, are seen as being honest, as trustworthy, as problem solvers, and Republican women are also seen as being fiscally responsible and the ones that I believe are a big part of the solution. So I'm proud to join you all this evening. In so many ways, we are at a crossroads here as a country, and we've had record unemployment now, over 9% for a record amount of time. We've also reached a record in our spending, and as I think most people in the country are aware, the President has asked Congress to raise this debt ceiling by $2.4 trillion to get us through November of 2012. That's his request. And the Republicans believe that it is very important that as we look at our fiscal situation, that we are not just continuing down the current path of raising the debt ceiling, of adding to the credit cards, but that we are changing course, that we are cutting up those credit cards. And I think it's important for people to realize what that means for them and their family. This request would be $20,000 for every American family, $20,000 in additional debt for every American family across this country. And it is very important before we vote to raise that debt, add that debt to our families moving forward, that we change course. And the real question in my mind is whether or not the President recognizes that we cannot continue down this path. When you think about our future, economic opportunities, national security interests, it is very important that we change paths. And that's why I am proud of the legislation that passed the House last night with an overwhelming majority. We actually got some Democrat votes. It's a bipartisan bill that passed the House with 234 votes. And now it's over in the Senate, and we already know that 37 senators have signed on to support this bill. And we want to make sure that America realizes that there is a plan on paper that has passed the House and does have support in the Senate, and we want to continue to build on that support. Cut, cap, and balance is a reasonable, it's a credible plan to addressing where we find ourselves as a country. Yes, it includes cuts in current year spending. It includes caps as we move forward so that we're going to bring down how much we're spending, and it includes the balanced budget amendment. I'm, like so many, a strong supporter of the balanced budget amendment. When I was first running for Congress in 2004, I talked a lot about the balanced budget amendment. What I didn't appreciate was to what degree the federal government spends money, borrows money, and prints money with no limits. I thought, well, there must be some limits. There are no limits on the federal government's ability to borrow, to spend, and print money. And the balanced budget amendment was one that even Thomas Jefferson, after they finished writing the Constitution, said if I could make one change, it would be to limit the federal government's ability to borrow money. It's been a debate through the ages. It is long overdue, and this is a time. It's about America's future, and I'm proud to stand here tonight in support of cap, cut, and balance, and the balanced budget amendment, and getting our fiscal house in order for our economy today and for keeping the American dream alive for many years to come. And I thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to yield now to the gentlelady from West Virginia, Ms. Moore Capito.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank my colleagues here today for the opportunity to talk about something that's extremely important to every every woman in America, every person in America. It's really not a man or a woman thing or a child or a grandparent thing. It's all of us. And so I look at things a lot of times, I think like a lot of people, I kind of try to put my own life filter over what's going on here. And I'm in the sandwich generation. I have elderly parents who are having some bumpy roads with their health. And I just today, for the very first time, had my only and most beautiful granddaughter with me today on the house floor. And I realized poor little Celia has $45,000 worth of national debt on her head. And then I think about my parents trying to manage their health care, manage their finances in their senior years. Have they prepared enough? Did they make the right choices? And I think about all of that in-between generation of which I am, and I know that we want to make the right choices for ourselves, too, so that when our children are taking care of us, those decisions can be easier for them, and we can be well prepared. And quite honestly, with a $14 trillion debt, I don't think we're going to be prepared. What kind of handcuffs are we putting on our future generations? I think about at times in my life when maybe I've gone up to the limit on my credit card, or maybe things haven't been as particularly when we were younger, trying to buy a house for the first time, trying to figure out how we're going to manage the dollars when we were first getting started. And when we realized that maybe we were going a little over the limit or spending too much, was the first thing we thought about? Was it, let's get a loan, let's ask our parents for more money? No, the first thing you think about is, how are we going to cut back here? How are we going to save? How are we going to live within our means? Because that's the reasonable and rational way. That's the way our parents did it, and that's the way we've tried to do it. But that's not the way things go on here in Washington. Instead of trying to, a lot of people say, why is it just only about cutting spending? Because if we don't prove and show that we can cut spending at the beginning, before we talk about anything else, we're never going to do it. And I think those are the hard decisions. Those are the kitchen table decisions. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. That's a Ronald Reagan quote. That's absolutely true. And so I think that's why I think the cut, cap, and balance bill that we passed yesterday makes so much sense to a lot of American women around the kitchen table, because that's what they're doing. And so I think, you know, when we think about in terms of the balanced budget, when I listened to the debate yesterday, I think about my home state of West Virginia. We have a balanced budget. We have hundreds of $millions in surplus right now, because we are not permitted by law to spend more than we bring in. And so we had a good year this year for a lot of different reasons, but I think some of it is the smart budgeting that we did up front as a state. Make tough decisions as a state to make sure that at the end of the year we're not dipping into the rainy day fund, that we're not finding ourselves saying the only way we can save ourselves is to raise somebody's taxes. It's because the spending decisions that were made in the front end with a budget. We have a budget for the first time in, I don't know, I think 3 years in the House. And everybody around their kitchen table makes a budget. If they don't make it every year, certainly when they're in trouble, they start making a budget. You know, you do really simple things like decide not to go out to eat, stop your magazine subscriptions, you know, the easy things first, and then the really hard decisions. And that's where we are right now, are the hard decisions. And so I think that, you know, as a daughter and as a mother of a daughter and a mother of now a granddaughter, I think women make a lot of these decisions. I see the generations changing. I see the decisions maybe that my mom made were not as involved as the ones that I'm making. And I certainly can see that my own daughter, independent on her own, is going to be so much more empowered financially to make the decisions. So let's not leave her and the next generations holding a big IOU on their back. Let's take the opportunity. And, you know, and this is another question I get is, well, why? We've raised the debt ceiling how many times in the past? Numerous times in the past. I think they were quoting 17 times under Ronald Reagan or something like that, if I recall correctly. And that is correct. We have raised the debt ceiling. I voted to raise it before. But this is different. We need to seize this opportunity, because if we don't seize the opportunity to clamp down on the spending now, when the American people realize what an issue and what a problem and what a generational burden we're passing on, we have the ear of the American people, and that's the difference. That's the difference. And, you know, a lot of things in our lives are all about timing. Certainly political lives are all about timing. Sometimes you can have the greatest candidate in the world, and if it's not the right time, they can't make it. And this is the time. This is the time for us to grab the reins, to say to the Senate and the President and the American people, we're ready, you're ready, and let's join together and do this. So I look forward to hopefully cut cap, that is a little hard to say sometimes.
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, it's a tongue twister. Cut, cap, and balance makes it through the Senate. But at least if it doesn't make it in the form we passed today, the concepts within this, cutting, capping, and balancing our budgets, are everyday events in people's lives. We need to do it here, and I look forward to joining with all my fellow women Republicans we're talking with today, but the rest of the women in the country, but also every man, woman, and child in this country, because it's all about every American, and we don't want to see an overburden on one, either the older generation, the younger generation, or the generations to come. So thank you for having this, and I look forward to working together.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to yield to one of my fellow freshman colleagues who I have gotten to be very good friends with. She is an incredible individual. She is a great person to be serving with. I truly appreciate all of her input, thoughtful comments. We discuss issues every day here in Congress, and I yield to my good friend Sandy Adams from Florida.
Thank you. And I join my fellow Republican women today to come and talk to you about what we passed yesterday, cut, cap, and balance. And I want to reach out to the American people and tell them why. August 2nd is quickly approaching. And what we have heard from our President is first the Biden talks, then it was the grand bargain, then it was, oh, the McConnell-Reed deal, then it was Gang of Six. Again, all of these are proposals, all of these are ideas, nothing on paper, nothing to be scored by the Congressional Budget Office. Not one thing put down in writing so that the American people and, quite frankly, Congress knows what is truly in these plans. So now, just yesterday, the House Republicans passed cut, cap, and balance. Cut, cap, and balance with bipartisan support. It's the only legislation that has been introduced to Congress that actually addresses the debt, the deficit, and the ability to get our budget back in order, balancing our budget. The only one scored by the Congressional Budget Office. I supported that legislation, and I will continue to support it because it is the only legislation that has been brought forth to handle our debt, deficit, and our budget. Not any of these other plans that have been floated out there, spoken about, talked about. Nothing in writing. As I heard one of my colleagues say earlier, the Congressional Budget Office said, we can't score a speech. And the American people don't really know what's in that legislation unless you write it down and let them take a look at it. That is so important for the American people. They want to know what we are doing. That's why it was so important that we had cut, cap, and balance out there. The American people had a chance to read it, review it. They've seen what we have done. And I'm hearing from the people in my district that they're happy. They're happy that we have passed a responsible bill. We're facing $14.3 trillion in debt. It's equal to about 95% of our entire economy. $3.7 trillion of that was just accrued under President Obama's watch. To put that in perspective, it took the United States from 1776 to 1992 to accrue that same amount of debt that we've accrued in about 2.5 years. We're mortgaging our children's future. We're borrowing 40 cents on the dollar, much of it from the Chinese, and we are sending the bill to our children and grandchildren. This has got to stop. If we don't listen to the American people, then shame on us. We have heard them loud and clear. We know they want us to get our fiscal house in order because every day the American people are making their hard decisions on what they're going to buy, whether it's gas, whether it's prescription drugs, whether it's food, because everything is going up. And the jobs are going away. We have a high unemployment rate. We have a different credit rating places telling us, get your fiscal house in order or we are going to downgrade you. And if that happens, the American people are the ones that suffer with us. This affects each and every one of us. That is why I am proud to have supported cut, cap, and balance. That is why we stand here today talking with you, the American people, letting you know we heard you. I'm ringing the alarm. My colleagues in the House are ringing the alarms. But the Senate Democrats and this President don't seem to be listening. We have a problem, and it is not a tax problem. It is a spending problem here in Washington. We need to get that spending under control. Since 1917, I think that's when they first passed this debt ceiling legislation. And I think, personally, they passed it with hopes that Congress would never spend more than they took in. That's my opinion. I wasn't here back then. But I will tell you that year after year, Congress has voted to ignore, to move on, continue the spending without addressing the true drivers of our debt. We have to address those drivers. And if Congress isn't willing and the President isn't willing, then the American people are willing. And they're saying, send us the balanced budget amendment. Let us show you where we are on this. 49 states, 49, have a balanced budget requirement, and they're able to live within their means. We should do no less. The American people live within their means, states live within their means, and Congress and the federal government should do no less. Years of kicking the can down the road have come to an end. Reckless spending needs to stop. And the Senate's repeated failure not to pass a budget and do their jobs that has led us to this economic crossroads needs to stop. I'm asking my colleagues in the Senate, take up this bill, pass this bill, listen to the American people. They want the opportunity to vote on a balanced budget amendment. Let them. What are you afraid of? Let the American people's voices be heard. Let them vote. Americans deserve better, and we have proven that here in the House. I hope that our Senate colleagues are listening. I hope our President is listening. August 2nd is quickly approaching. You do not have a scorable plan written down, and we need to make sure that we protect our American heritage for our future generations. With that, I yield back.
Thank you so much. I now Yes.
The Chair would like to receive a message to the House.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Secretary.
I am directed by the President of the United States to deliver to the House of Representatives a message in writing.
The gentlewoman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you. I now yield to the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Schmidt, for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my good friend, Mrs. Elmers from North Carolina, for hosting this evening, because this is about America's future. and about America doing what each and every woman, each and every man, each and every family has to do each and every week at their table, and that's balance the budget and pay the bills. You know, the greatest president, they say, in this century, or in the last century, was Ronald Reagan, and in his farewell speech he said, all great change in America begins at the dinner table, and it does. It's the universe of our home life. It's where we educate our children, where we feed our children, where we stake out the ideas of how we want our future to go, where we plan parties, where we plan events, and where we discuss Grandma's departure. It is the center of our home. And it is from that that I want to focus on what I think needs to be said tonight. We have to balance our budget in America, in this House, in this chamber, at this kitchen table. We've all seen what it is to take a checkbook, take the bills, and make them come together. That's what we need to do, and that's what I believe a balanced budget amendment will force this Congress and future Congresses to do, balance our checkbook. You know, just like mothers and grandmothers across this country, I have a major stake in the future of our nation, and that is not just my daughter and her wonderful husband, but my Michael and my Anthony, my wonderful little grandchildren. My father was the epitome of the American dream. He came from nothing, but he worked hard and started his business and paid the bills of those businesses at their little small kitchen table. And he grew that and gave us the opportunity to make sure that what we wanted to accomplish in the United States was available to us. And that's what I did for my daughter. And you know, when she started her little business, you know where she started it? At the kitchen table in the house she grew up in. And she's got a thriving little business. But she's got 2 little children, and we want that American dream for them. We've got to get our fiscal house in order. We cannot keep creating the debts and deficits that we are creating in this country. A balanced budget amendment will force us to do the right things for our country, just as moms and dads across the nation have to do all the time at their kitchen tables. That's live within our means. I urge the Senate to take up the balanced budget amendment. I urge this chamber to adopt it. I urge the Senate to adopt it and to make it a reality. I yield back.
Thank you so much. I now yield to my other, I say we have many, don't we? Good friend from Missouri, Ms. Hartzler, who is one of those great freshmen that I'm serving with.
Well, thank you, Renee, and we certainly appreciate you hosting this today. And I certainly am glad to lend my support of the balanced budget amendment. And you know, it goes back to my childhood, and I've shared this before, but I wanted to share this again because this is what I grew up with, and I believe it's what most Americans grew up with. I grew up on a farm, and it was just my mom and my dad and my sister and I. And every January, my mom would get out all of these ledger papers and lay them out on the kitchen table, because that was before the days of computers. And each page represented a month. And she and my dad would spend days, literally, charting out the cash flow for our farm for the rest of the year. And they would try to estimate how much the yield was going to be on the corn and the soybeans. And they had to guess how much the price was going to be. And they researched the cost of the seed and the other inputs and the fuel. And they charted that all out. And then our mortgage payments. And they were able to, through working that pencil and erasing and reworking it, figure out how they were going to make everything work, how they were going to be able to live within their means. And it wasn't always easy, but as the year went on and conditions changed, Mother would get that eraser out and she would readjust that cash flow to make sure that we stayed in balance, made sure that we had everything that we need. And that's just common sense. That's families balancing their budget. I carry on that tradition. I do it. And people all over the Missouri's 4th District do it. Families I talk to, they say every year, we balance our budget. How come Washington does it? Every small business I visit with says, we balance our budget. How come Washington does it? Every farmer and rancher I visit with says, we balance our budget. How come Washington does it? We have got to start taking the common sense from the people and apply it here in Washington. You know, even the states, they certainly are one up on us here. 49 out of 50 of the states have a balanced budget amendment. They live within their means. Yet Washington thinks they don't need it. Well, I think they do. With a $14.3 trillion debt that we have now, it is evident that people here cannot live within their means, and they need to have the constraints of the budget. So we passed it here in the House. It was the right thing to do. It's supported by the American people. Now the Senate and the President need to get on board. Why the President would oppose our cut, cap, and balance plan, I have no idea. I want the President to share with me and with all of us and the American people why he does not support balancing our budget. We do it at home, we need to do it in Washington, and we need to do it now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I yield. This will be you will be finishing this evening's comments. A good friend to all of us as freshmen, a mentor to us, and I thank you for coming this evening as well. It means very much that you contribute to this. Ms. Granger from Texas, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For 3 minutes.
I want to talk a little bit about my experience balancing budgets because I had to manage many different kinds of budgets, and some at all the same time. As a business owner for 23 years, I had to balance my insurance company's budget. As the mayor of Fort Worth, I had to balance the city's budget, and as the mother of 3, I had to balance the household budget. What is the same about every budget I've ever balanced is that there was never any choice. There were very serious consequences for not being fiscally responsible, whether it was in my business, at City Hall, or at home. Most Americans have the same experience I've had. We all sit around the kitchen table and figure out how to make ends meet. And then we ask, why can't Washington do the same thing? Families and businesses have to balance their budgets every single day. It's only right that the federal government, with $14.3 trillion in debt, should finally have to do what all Americans already do. But when Washington is asked to balance the budget for the American people, this seems to be too tall an order. Washington could learn a thing or two from the women in Congress. 10.6 million businesses owned in the United States are owned by women, and women now make up the majority of the workforce. We're the leaders of Fortune 500 companies, but as we've taken an even greater responsibility, we haven't given anything up. We're balancing budgets at our business during the day, and when we get home, we're taking care of our family's finances, and many of us care for our aging parents and their budgets too. We know what it means to make ends meet, and we've lived up to that responsibility in every part of our lives. It's now time for Washington to do the same. I thank you, and I return the balance of my time.
Thank you so much. And with that, you know, my good friend was pointing out the need to be following our finances, and you know, as more and more women are becoming business owners and they are the breadwinners, as you can see from this chart here, once again figuring out the bills, balancing the budget, taking care of our family members, their health care needs, so important. And in order for us to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars here in Washington, it's time for a balanced budget amendment. I'm very proud of what our House has done in a bipartisan effort yesterday, and I'm hoping that the Senate and the President will also be part of that very significant historic move so that we can get this country back on sound financial ground. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be joined by my colleagues today, and we were going to talk about the financial situation here in the United States and the meaning of the various ideas and proposals that have been put forward. I want to compliment my colleagues on the Republican side for their tenacity in putting out their sound bites, but I think it's very, very important for the American people to understand in detail exactly what is being proposed here. Yesterday we did have what was called the cut, cap, and balance proposal. You might also call it the cut, slash, and burn proposal, because once you get past the sound bites and get into the details of what has actually been proposed, you got to stand back and go, whoa, wait a minute. Is that really what a balanced budget amendment is all about? We're going to go into that in a few moments to really understand exactly what this balanced budget amendment is and the effect that it will have on Americans, particularly on women in America. But before we go there, we need to step back a bit and understand how is it that we got into this situation with this deficit, $14 trillion. How did we get here? It's really important to understand that before you go off and try to solve the problem. You need to know what is the situation, what is the circumstance. Well, this little chart here lays out where the deficit came from. Now, understand that at the end of the Clinton administration in 2001, January 2001, the United States government was running a surplus, a $300 billion plus surplus. Had run that for the previous 2 years. So we had a surplus, and we were on the path during the decade 2001-2010 to literally pay off the entire American debt. It would be paid off. Now, whether that's a good idea or not, you can debate that, but that's what we were on. So the trajectory was, had we maintained the same policies, the same growth in our economy, we would have paid off the total debt. However, something happened. Now, what happened? What happened was change in policies and 2 wars. The Afghanistan war following the 9/11 event in 2001, and then the Iraq war in 2003. Neither war paid for. For the first time in American history, neither war was paid for. All borrowed money. First time ever in America's history. Now, another thing happened along the way, and that is in 2001, the first George W. Bush tax cut, followed in 2003 by the second George W. Bush tax cut. And here's what they meant. Take a careful look at this. This is where the deficit started. We start here with the Bush-era tax cuts, and over the years, so that in 2019, 20 years, we have this extraordinary growth in the deficit caused by those tax cuts. Of course, it assumes that tax cuts will continue on into 2019. The red area here are the wars. Again, not paid for. So the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war. The other thing is this downturn in the economy. The downturn in the economy occurred in 2008. How did it happen? Why did we have that crash of the American economy? We had it because the federal government stepped back from regulating the financial institutions, allowing them to run wild, assuming that they would be smart enough to regulate themselves. That didn't happen. They were smart enough to be extraordinarily greedy. Wall Street went on a greed binge, and the result was the collapse of the financial industry. Needless to say, there were other players in this game, and many Americans, hundreds of thousands of Americans, joined in the game and took out mortgages, bought houses that there was no way they could possibly afford them. The financial industry, the mortgage industry, and Wall Street bankers, and we wound up with the great collapse of 2008. To deal with that, the bailout of Wall Street occurred. Most of that has now been paid back. It worked. Did it work for the benefit of Americans? Well, it stabilized the financial institutions, and it certainly worked for the benefit of Wall Street. That program occurred in the final months of the George W. Bush administration. Unfortunately, The American economy has not recovered despite the spending of some $700 billion in the stimulus program. It actually worked. It didn't work enough to get the economy moving forward. So we wound up with this huge deficit. Going forward, the deficit remains in place because the wars continue, $178 billion a year spent on the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Also continuing are the George W. Bush tax cuts. This is where the deficit's coming from. And thirdly, the economy has not recovered. That's where the deficit is. Now, what do you do about that? Do you put in place a constitutional amendment that has some really interesting, and when the American public understands what is in that amendment, it's not just balanced budget. There are real things in that amendment. And that amendment, if ever put in place, will have extraordinary consequences for America. In my view, none of them positive. Soundbite is great. Balance the budget. Force the government to balance the budget, just like we do at home. Hello, America. Do you really balance your budget every month, every year? I don't think so. We take out a mortgage to buy a house. That's borrowing money, folks. That's not balancing your daily budget. That's borrowing money, and now you've got to pay the mortgage, pay the interest. And when you lose your job, or when you're laid off, or when you're cut back in hours, what do? You do your best to cut expenses, and then you probably are going to borrow more money. Maybe the home equity loan, maybe the credit card to get by. We all do that, all of us. It's not so easy to, at the end of every year, balance the budget. 49 states, yes, they have a balance of budget amendment. I'm from California. Democrat Jerry Brown, facing a balanced budget amendment. Guess what? Borrows money. Doesn't balance the budget. Oh, and his predecessor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Republican, conservative, said he was going to blow up boxes and balance the budget. Happened twice in the 7 years that he was governor that he was able to balance the budget. Why did this happen? Why did it happen? America asked the question, what is in the balanced budget amendment? I'll tell you what's in it. A requirement that a two-thirds vote be enacted, be there for every expenditure and every tax increase. A two-thirds vote. This is a fundamental shift of American democracy. We had a dozen wonderful representatives of the Republican Party talk for an hour here, and not once did they mention that the American democracy will be forever changed. No longer majority rule. A fundamental tenet of American democracy, majority rule. Pushed aside, and now, should this ever become law, a minority rule. 1/3 of this House, 1/3 of the Senate, dominating the will of 65% of every elected representative and senator. The end of the most fundamental tenet of American democracy. The end of majority rule. It also works in a very pernicious and bad way. You can cut taxes. You can cut taxes with a majority vote. It takes a two-thirds to raise taxes. So, years and years ago, the oil industry had the opportunity in our democracy to receive a tax reduction. They got a tax reduction. And the oil industry went on with that tax reduction called a subsidy so that they can explore for oil and gas. For 100 years, they have had a tax break. Now, we can give them another tax break, but under the balanced budget amendment, it would take a two-thirds vote to take away the tax reduction, the tax break, the subsidy that they have received for 100 years, a century. Would take a two-thirds vote to do that, because that would be considered to be a tax increase. So what does it mean to the oil industry? Well, here's their profits from last year. Let's see. Exxon, $10.7 billion. Oxy, $1.6. Conoco, $2.1. Chevron, $6.2. BP of Gulf fame, $7.2 billion. That's their profit. Part of that profit is your tax dollar. Part of that profit is the tax dollar of every American that has been given to the oil companies for more than a century so that they can go explore for oil. Is there an American that believes that the oil industry needs our tax dollars to continue to be viable? I don't think so. But if the constitutional amendment passes, becomes part of our Constitution, a majority of this House and the Senate could increase the subsidy, but it would take a two-thirds vote to get our money back. We need to understand the details of what a balanced budget amendment means. I notice that I've been joined by my wonderful friend and extraordinary representative from the great state of New York, representing the Hudson River Valley in the Capital Region. We had a discussion last night about a piece of this, and I've been waiting for you to arrive when we could talk about how the balanced budget amendment and the cuts in the legislation that was passed yesterday would affect women. We just had 20 women from the Republican Party here telling us that we ought to enact a balanced budget amendment. What does it mean for women who are 65 and over?
Well,
Mr. Tonko, would you please join us and enter this conversation?
Thank you, Representative Garamendi, and thank you for bringing us together on some very important discussion and a laser-sharp focus, which is essential as we face this default crisis, where there are those who are dragging their feet and not resolving the default crisis and refuse to have us pay our bills. And when we default on our debt, it's very problematic because it can disrupt our pensions, it can disrupt our 401ks, it can disrupt our mortgages because of the interest rate being somewhat fluctuated by that default crisis and our failure to pay our bills. What I think is important here is that you outline how unfair this process can be, how it can be rooted to support easily deep pockets, efforts to give windfall industries a mindless handout. The big oil companies getting a handout, it's much easier to retain that benefit, and it's very difficult to save Medicare. It's a simple majority that can end Medicare. Many of us go home every week, others as frequently as they can because of the distance they have to travel to get to their districts, and we're greeted by signs like this: hands off my Medicare. And it's no wonder, because what we've seen yesterday was the third attempt in this given few months of the 112th Congress to end Medicare. 3 votes, one with a Republican study committee, one with the Ryan Plan, a path to prosperity, which we have redesignated the road to ruin, and then yesterday with this cut, burn, and whatever, slash and burn attempt. I won't even get into the nomenclature because it's inappropriate. It's misrepresenting what would really happen. Yesterday we had a vote on this floor to make it easy to end Medicare and easy to maintain handouts to the oil companies. And when we look at the dollars that are saved by ending Medicare, we see where they somehow are transitioned over to tax cuts that are maintained for the millionaire, billionaire community, mindless handouts to the big oil industry. So this is buyer beware week. We've seen this 3 times over, and it's an assault on the middle class. When you talk about the impact on women, you know, an armchair scientist can take a look at that population of seniors and understand that the proportional representation to the greater degree is women in that category. So this is an assault on senior women who require Medicare. And you know, we talked about this last night on the floor, that things have changed since 1965. When, you know, President Truman and Mrs. Truman were the first to sign up for Medicare with that wonderful legislation, they began a process of dignity for our nation's seniors, where affordable, accessible care, a certainty in their lives, became a much-needed concept, because there was cherry-picking going on. There was the unaffordable notion, the inaccessible notion of health care insurance coverage. And to put that now at risk and develop and mess with our Constitution to make that all work, it's no wonder Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, called it a very foolish approach. They labeled it in just very negative tones. And certainly Bruce Bartlett, who was the economic advisor to President Reagan, said that it was akin to an intern writing a bill on a napkin. Well, I think that's a pretty tough slam for our interns. They would do better. So we need to go forward with sensible strategies. We need to solve the default crisis. And let's face it, it should be about investing in jobs. The jobs crisis is the #1 priority of the American public. We see it in public opinion survey over and over again. And that job crisis, when we resolve it, addresses any revenue crisis, any spending crisis, any deficit crisis. This is the best solution. Create jobs, invest in innovation, infrastructure, education.
Mr. Tonko, once again, you are on the right track here. Earlier, before you came in, I was discussing our Republican colleagues' Women's Day, and they were all talking about the great value in the balanced budget constitutional amendment. My colleague from Colorado, Jared Polis, came running over and said, they don't understand. They need to know what's in this. And I'd like you to explain. I started off with the majority, two-thirds vote, but why don't you're a constitutional specialist. What does all of this mean to America if they really understood and got past the soundbite? Balanced budget sounds good, but what does it actually mean?
Well, it's particularly ironic that this session of Congress opened with a recital of the United States Constitution, which has really, in the vote yesterday, has been debased. And our Democratic Republic has been debased to an extent that I certainly have not seen in this body prior under either party. Let's talk about exactly what was attempted yesterday in this constitutional amendment that was essentially passed as part of a resolution. It's one thing to say we want to eliminate Medicare. The House worked its will through the Ryan budget, phasing out Medicare for those who are under 55 years of age. The people of this country will have the opportunity to change that. We saw an election in upstate New York where I think, and most people think, that the people of this country soundly rejected the effort to eliminate Medicare. But regardless, that's what elections are about. I know that in the last election, Democrats didn't fare too well. A majority of this House was elected that wanted to phase out Medicare for people under the age of 55. Just likewise, in the next election, if people run on that, a majority might arise in this body that supports keeping Medicare solvent for the next generation. But what was attempted yesterday was circumventing the public will by inserting into the United States Constitution exact fiscal policy that essentially wouldn't allow Medicare to exist in any form similar to what it exists today. It would actually specify an exact percentage of the gross national product that the public sector can contain in our governing document. This is unprecedented. Who hears of putting numbers, 19.7%, 19.5%, 21%? We're talking about the percentage of the economy that can be public sector versus private sector. Who knows what the ideal percentage is? That's what elections are about. That's what we fight off here every day here on the floor of the House. I'll say, we should have it a little bigger. You should say it should be a little smaller. The people of their country have their say. To somehow take that out of the realm of public discourse and insert that into our governing document is unprecedented. It castrates the United States Congress. It castrates and eliminates our ability to make public policy, for better or worse. I had an exchange with one of my colleagues on the Rules Committee as we were bringing this to the floor the other day. I said, this is such an absurd concept. Imagine for a minute that there was a Democratic majority, and we were saying, you know what, we want to put in our Constitution that public expenditures have to be at least 22% of GNP, or 25. It never even crossed our minds. There's no Democratic proposal like that because it just doesn't make any sense. That's what elections are about. And yet here the Republican majority is trying to insert into our governing document, one that they say that they have great respect for, whether they began the session of the House by reading, inserting exact formulated fiscal policy regarding the exact size of the public sector, taking that ability away from the voters of this country, taking the discussion away from the deliberative bodies of the House and the Senate, taking it out of the hands of an election for President of the United States, removing the fundamental issue of what role government should play from political debates. That is grossly undemocratic. It should be an insult to all of us who value our democratic republic, who value our democratic institutions. However flawed, our representational system of democracy is the most effective in the world. The people's voice will be heard. By taking away the people's voice and castrating the United States Congress to specific policies prescribed in the Constitution, we remove the ability of present and future voters of the country to have their voices heard. And regardless of where anyone comes down on the policies, regardless of what percentage of the GNP you think it should be, I hope that most Americans believe that it's a fundamental value to have a say in our system of governance and to have these debates and to have them be part of the public discourse. And that was proposed to be taken away completely by a bill that passed yesterday in this body by a majority vote from the Republican side. I yield back to the gentleman from California.
Thank you so much for bringing our attention to the way in which the balanced budget amendment would fundamentally alter the very nature of our government. Earlier I talked about the majority vote versus the minority rule that is in this amendment, and now you bring to our attention the percentage that is in the amendment. Those percentages have real meaning beyond the issue of just a very, very important issue to the very nature of our government and the reason why we have representative government, why we have a Senate, why we have a Congress. But there's something else to it, and that is the percentage that they have chosen would force the government expenditures to go back to the 1965 level, where there was no Medicaid and no Medicare program in America. So once again, there are different ways of assaulting and terminating Medicare. One was the direct way that was in the Republican budget that passed this House earlier, in which they explicitly said that for all Americans who are not yet 55, there would be no Medicare. They'd be given a voucher and they'd have to go buy insurance from the private insurance market that all of us understand is a very difficult place to get a fair deal. The other part of it is, the other way of doing it is in a constitutional amendment as proposed yesterday that would make it impossible to fund Medicare, and similarly impossible to fund things like natural disasters. Let's assume we were at 18%, which is the number they've chosen, of GDP in the federal budget, and we have the Great Mississippi Flood, or the Great Missouri Flood, or the earthquake in California, or the hurricane in Florida. Billions of dollars. Federal government would have no ability under this amendment to step in. Let me turn to Mr. Tonko. You have some other things I know you want to bring to our attention. And please, Mr. Tonko.
Yeah, well, you know, by their own acknowledgement, their own leaders indicated that this would enshrine the Republican agenda to end Medicare in the United States Constitution. And so what we end up with is that we have these very bold statements made that right there after the freedom of religion and the freedom of thought, the freedom of assembly, we can have the freedom from health care for anyone age 65 and older. Not quite an honorable position to follow and promote.
Freedom from health care.
Yeah. You know, I just think that what we have witnessed is messing with a very precious document, one that governs this democracy, this republic, in a way that was carefully planned by our founding parents. And to take that precious document and use it in order to promote a political agenda, and one that denies access to a health care concept, is wrong. And when we look at this 1966 threshold, when we take it back to spending opportunities at that vintage, we need to keep in mind that Medicare, assisting grandparents, grandma and grandpa, means that they're denying the fundamental fact that since 1966, grandparents, grandma is living 10 years longer on average. And so it's not real to take us back to this unwarranted threshold of 1996, and that also, you know, we've had much progress in technology and in research in medicine, so that there are new opportunities for which we avail ourselves the funds. So I think that a lot of this is not based on reality. It's not based on the desire to serve. It's rather based on denial. And that's not what this should be about. There is a certain bit of dignity. There's a respect factor shown the senior population. And I can tell you, when you get messages like this at home, keep your hands off Medicare, we're getting this in letter format, email format, faxes coming to the office, phone calls, 9 to 1. Every 10 calls coming in, you'll get 9 phone calls of advocacy to not only keep Medicare, but strengthen it. And what we did, as you know, Representative Garamendi, we went through and provided those screenings and those annual checkups and made certain that no co-payments or deductibles would hold back the opportunity for our seniors. We made certain that we began the process of filling the donut hole. And we found savings in the Medicare situation. And yes, they're right. They talk about cutting back. We found savings by reducing the profit columns of the insurance industry when it came to Medicare, and then transferred in a very fungible way. We transferred those savings into the development positive outcome for seniors in the pharmaceutical area, because we know that the donut hole is a very pricey thing for many people. In any few months into a calendar year, seniors are dipping into their own pocket to pay for the pharmaceutical costs in order to stay well or to recover from an illness. And so there was great passion, compassion shown here, and we moved forward with a way to fill the donut hole completely. And we began that process last year. That is denied again in this process. And you know, again, to the fact of being concerned about women, if you're concerned about women, why would you cut Head Start programs? Many working moms require Head Start, not only for their own doable outcome to maintain a career or perhaps work because you may be a single parent or a double income household still needs that job. Head Start is a good way to develop the social, the educational, the cognitive skills of youngsters. Why would you deny 250,000 children Head Start? That's an attack on women, working women. Why would you reduce education by 12% in Title I areas, as they had suggested, as they did with their budget? That's an attack on educators, most of whom are women. It's still a very highly predominant field for women. So when we look at some of the attacks here by gender, by age, by income strata, it's clearly assumed here and documented that it's an assault on middle-class America, on working families, and it is time to grow the middle class, strengthen middle class, enhance their purchasing power. In so doing, you develop a stronger America. And so, you know, we need to go forward with a laser-sharp focus and an honesty that's built by truth, not fiction, and do what is best as we go forward to invest in infrastructure, education, and certainly the improvements that we need to make in innovation.
Before we leave the balanced budget amendment, the bill that was on the floor yesterday had 2 other pieces to it. One of them was to go after the budget of the United States and reduce it by $111 billion beginning in October of this year. That has real impact. Part of that impact will be felt on Medicare. Let's just put some understanding into what Medicare is all about. Our colleague from Connecticut did this last night, but it really, I think, is well worth repeating. And so I'm going to just read off some statistics, so please bear with me. In 1965, when Medicare was established, 44% of all seniors, 65 and over, did not have health insurance. Now, of those 40%, of those, 40% of the seniors lived in poverty. So you had heavy poverty and you had no insurance. The two are tied together. You get sick, you lost your money. You spent everything you had. The life expectancy at that period was 70 years. Now, what's happened in the intervening years since 1965? Now, 40 million seniors, nearly every senior in the United States has health insurance. Not just a little health insurance, they have a comprehensive health insurance policy that covers most everything they need: doctors, hospitals, and drugs. The poverty rate for seniors has fallen from 40% to 10%. Why? Social Security and Medicare. Now, they lived to 70 in 1965. Today, seniors live to an average age of 78.5 years. Why? Because they have medical care and they have Social Security providing them with the basics of life. Now, what happens if the Republican budget were to pass and Social Security were to end, not only for those who are 55 years of age now and want to have Social Security 10 years later in their lives when they become 65, but immediately for seniors now? If the Republican bill passed, would become law, that passed yesterday, and the previous one, the budget bill, were to become law, $880 billion would be removed from Medicaid. Medicaid's a different program than Medicare. This is for impoverished people in America, almost all of whom are in nursing homes. $880 billion over 10 years removed from Medicaid. So those seniors, most of whom are women, and I will remind you that we heard from the Republican women here earlier, promoting a program that would cut $880 billion out of Medicaid, 70% of which goes to nursing homes, the majority of whom in those nursing homes are women. This is not a women's program that they put forward. And on the drug side, you were talking about this, Mr. Tonko. This is an immediate reduction in the drug benefits, so that 3.9 million seniors would wind up paying $2.2 billion more immediately if the Republican budget were to go into law because of the reduction in the Affordable Care Act that provided this benefit. These are just some of the things that the American public needs to understand when you get past the sound bites. We must balance the budget, and therefore the balanced budget amendment. Wait. What is it? What does it really do? Terminates majority rule in America and institutes minority rule. So the fundamental of American democracy is trashed. Requires that the budget of the United States be ramped back to the 1965 percentage of GDP before there was Medicare, which inevitably and inextricably means that Medicare is over once that balanced budget amendment passes. Mr. Tonko, please continue on.
Is the